company philosophy today is, as it always has been, that we must look after our customers and we must give them a fair deal and look after them when they've bought their car.
Because we've been around for over 100 years, we can demonstrate that we must be doing something right.
But I would go so far as to say the amount of care and attention we pay to our customers nowadays is probably 100% better than it was in the 50s and 60s.
Back in the 70s, my father's company car was always an E-Type. When you're a youngster, you say, "Oh, what car have you got tonight?" "I've got my usual car." "Oh, not an E-Type." And you just think nowadays, you'd kill for a car like that. So yes, I've always been interested in cars, definitely. And I'm very fortunate that Barney is very interested in business, so it works well together. It's a good dynamic. It's a very good dynamic.
I'm the third generation, they're the fourth, 117 years old. Grandfather founded it in 1897. This badge is a hark back to his days.
Walter started the business back in the late 1800s. He travelled out to Australia with the grand vision of making his fortune. And then while he was out there, he met a girl who was also coincidentally from Leicester as well. So they ended up marrying, and they started a shop in Melbourne making and repairing bicycles. They sort of decided Australia wasn't for them, and they came back to Leicester.
He went to Australia with no money and came back with no money, and set up making bikes.
Eventually, when they'd moved from bicycles to motorbikes to cars, they built, I suppose, what would have been one of the first garages in the city on Braunston Gate. And that's the site that we had up until the 50s. Some of my earliest memories are in this building. Mum would come to visit Dad here and I'd be tagging along, and the showroom would be crammed full of Rovers and Jaguars and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And on the outside of his office door there was a box with 3 lights. One would say wait, one would say come in, and one would say engaged. And so you'd knock on the door very respectfully, and eventually you'd see this little light ping, which was either come in or sod off, we're busy. When we actually came to have a look at the building, Chris and I were both furtively looking around thinking, is that box going to be here somewhere? And lo and behold, there it was, caked in paint. When this building eventually gets used for something, it'll take pride of place in someone's office. It'll be fine. It'll be fine eventually.
Because you grow up with cars and you see the gestation of cars from being new cars through to used cars to bangers to classics, that's always quite interesting, I find, as you will soon see. We've got a Mark II Jaguar, a car that we supplied initially back in 1961, and it was sold to a Mr. Joseph's in Leicester, and it was offered to me by a local Jaguar man. And when I bought the car, I was handed over some documentation, owner's handbooks, the service books and all that sort of stuff. So the fact that we had a lot of the paperwork relating to the car's early life just made me think, well, we need to save it. So not one of my smartest buys, but I just go for basket cases like this. Cars that have some sort of connection with the business. We also have a Triumph Stag. That was my late grandfather's last proper company car. So there was every good reason to seek that car out and hang on to it. People do get a bit misty-eyed and they comment about, nice car, my father used to have one of those, or haven't seen one of those for God knows how many years. So you have to, it's not all about keeping the exotic stuff going, it's also about keeping the everyday cars going. Ford Cortinas, Austin Princesses, Hillman Imps, all those sorts of things. They need to be kept going, definitely.
As a business, we've evolved with the changing landscape of the motor trade. We started obviously with franchises that are no longer in existence, but we took on Jaguar and Land Rover in 1947 and 1948 respectively. So we've got an enormous amount of history and a lot of heritage with those with those brands. Now we represent not just those two franchises, but also Volvo, Alfa Romeo, Hyundai, Fiat and Suzuki, which we took on just recently. From our perspective, I think if you're buying a new car, it's a pretty important purchase and it's a pretty special occasion. And from that perspective, we want to try and make sure that everybody feels like they're getting the red carpet treatment.
As far as the future is concerned, the Sons are not taking over, they've taken over. And actually, it works very well. I feel I've achieved what I wanted. You couldn't wish for anything better, actually, as a family business, which is where it all comes from. And it's going to stay that way.